reason the department is about to take action, we understand, in the local fight against the coronavirus. 3 days in a row last week, we saw days with more than 100 cases of the virus. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, look at the very right side of your screen. Those are the numbers from the last few days. Now, the numbers from yesterday will be released about 5 o'clock later on today. So we're beginning to see what we had feared, and that is a relatively large-scale spike. And you can see what last week's numbers have done to the 14-day average in Idaho. We are definitely trending in the wrong direction. One of the biggest climbs in cases right now, right here in Ada County. Ada County is a hotspot, according to health officials. There were 275 cases in Ada County alone last week. The numbers, well, from last week alone create the question, are the stats seen prompting today's 1 o'clock news conference that will be done virtual from the Central District Health? We're going to find out very soon and take you there as they begin that. Now, one of the reasons for the spike in Ada County has been determined to be a cluster of cases found at local bars. At last check, Central District Health linked more than 100 cases to 10 bars in and around the capital city area. On Friday, a spokesperson for CDH said if the case count continues to rise, they could shut down the bars in Ada County. We are currently in phase 4 of the reopening plan. That would mean stepping back to phase 3 in hopes of preventing more spiked cases. Shutting down the bars is an option. One bar owner told us she would strictly enforce social distancing and would even start requiring customers to wear a mask. So again, that is one of the possibilities that is obviously being discussed and that will be laid out today by Central District Health. Now, a small study suggests that coronavirus antibodies may last only a couple of months after infection. Chinese researchers studied a total of 74 COVID-19 patients. Half of them were asymptomatic. Over 80% of asymptomatic people saw a reduction in neutralizing antibodies within 8 weeks, compared to 62% of symptomatic patients. Also, antibodies fell to undetectable levels in 40% of patients who were asymptomatic within 8 weeks. Scientists say more research is needed with a larger group of people. Now, beginning on Wednesday, at least 7 counties in Oregon will require residents to wear masks. The Governor, Kate Brown, has ordered that face masks be worn both out in public and in places like grocery stores, bars, and restaurants. There are a few exceptions for those with medical condition and children younger than 12. The governor says, though the order is mandatory, it will not be enforced with any arrests or tickets. Meantime, in neighboring Washington, Governor Jay Inslee plans to issue a proclamation ordering Yakima County residents to wear masks while out in public, and businesses will not be allowed to sell products to customers without face coverings. A spike of coronavirus cases in Yakima County has overwhelmed the hospital system. Currently, there are more cases in Yakima County than in the entire state of Oregon. Governor Inslee says cases could double in the next 2 weeks if dramatic actions are not taken. Officials at Virginia Mason Memorial Hospital in Yakima, which holds more than 200 beds, say they have no more available beds. 22 ICU patients have actually been sent to Seattle for care. Well, our Joe Paris is at home right now. He's going to be listening into the news conference. And Joe, you've had your ear to the ground on this, covering the bar scene in downtown Boise, as well as in Meridian, where it has also touched there. What are you hearing about what today's news conference could entail? Hey Joe, you sound like a cricket. You sound like a Disney character. We're going to get your audio situation squared up for now. We'll get back to you as soon as we can not make you look like something that was animated for Disney. And now for the three things you need to know about the coronavirus. One, the World Health Organization is reporting that yesterday was the single largest increase in cases, with more than 183,000 new cases reported in the past 24 hours. More than 2/3 of new deaths reported in the Americas. The U.S., with the world's highest number of reported infections, over 2.2 million, and the highest death toll at about 120,000, that according to Johns Hopkins. Number two, the WHO says that the coronavirus didn't jump from animals to humans in China. They say the genetic sequences so far suggest that the recent outbreak of the coronavirus in China was due to human transmission, adding that it appears the virus was imported to Beijing from strains circulating around Europe.
When we talk about European strain, we need to be careful. There are different strains circulating, but to be frank, strains and viruses have moved around the world. For example, if you go to New York, many of the viruses that circulated in New York were of European origin. Even in places like Japan has re-imported cases from Europe. So I think it's not indicating that Europe is the origin of the disease at all. What it's saying most likely is that the disease was probably imported from outside Beijing at some point.
The WHO is also calling for a detailed investigation into the recent Beijing outbreak to determine how the imported cases sparked such a large cluster. Back here in Idaho, there are now more than 4,000 confirmed and probable cases of the coronavirus. Saturday was the fourth consecutive day of more than 100 new cases. As we continue to track the increase in confirmed cases, we're also tracking the number of patients with coronavirus symptoms that are sick enough to be admitted into the hospital. Take a look at a screen grab of the state's latest data on that. That number has not spiked recently, even though we are seeing, as you saw just minutes ago, a steady increase in new cases each and every day. Yesterday marked 100 days since Idaho reported its first case. Recently, we've seen a significant uptick in cases, and a lot of people who have recently gotten sick fall into the same demographic. So we're going to take a look at the virus trends and the hot spots around the Gem State. Here's our Gretchen Parsons to break it down.
Since the state started keeping track of COVID-19 cases 100 days ago, 3,594 Idahoans have tested positive.
Our infection in Idaho started at Ketchum, and then it kind of flowed down to Twin Falls and then up to Boise.
On Saturday, the state reported 132 new cases alone, making it the third day in a row where there were more than 100 cases reported in a day. In a town hall last week, Governor Brad Little said the state's caseload is going up partly because there's more testing.
We started off being able to test 14 people a week, and now we think we have a surge capacity of about 20,000.
But we haven't actually seen that necessarily translate into more utilization of hospitals, which is a good thing.
Earlier this month, the state reported a cluster of cases that were linked to downtown Boise bars, and many of the people who tested positive were younger Idahoans. Statewide statistics show that 18 to 29-year-olds account for the highest percentage of coronavirus cases in Idaho.
The new numbers here in the Boise Valley are mainly young people that are showing very little symptoms.
Few symptoms, but carriers nonetheless. There have been a total of 89 deaths in Idaho. 56 of those were in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. Of the nearly 3,600 who have tested positive, at least 3,305 people have recovered. June 26 marks the end of Phase 4 of the governor's reopening plan, but the governor says that doesn't mean life will resume as normal.
Stage 4 means we're pretty close to the end, but I don't want people to think because we're in Stage 4, they can be careless. When we get through Stage 4, there'll still be guidance for everything from restaurants to events.
Gretchen Parsons, Idaho's News, Channel 7.
And that's the key there that you just heard the governor's last soundbite. If we can get through Stage 4, that's the question right now. We are waiting. If you're just joining us, Central District Health has scheduled a press conference, a virtual press conference for today. It was scheduled at 1 o'clock. We understand they're having some technical difficulties in getting online on that, and as soon as they do, we'll take you to that. But as you just heard the governor mention, the key is being able to get through stage 4, and right now that is a huge struggle. The question is, will Central District Health, in consultation with the state epidemiologist and the governor, recommend a return to stage 3? Let's go over those stages very, very quickly. Stage 4, of course, nightclubs may operate with diminished standing room. Bars are allowed to open. Gatherings of more than 50 people where appropriate distancing and precautionary measures are observed can occur. That is where we are right now. If we move back to stage 3, nightclubs are closed, large venues are closed. Physical distancing protocols need to be strictly adhered to in places of businesses. Masks are recommended. The governor strongly recommends masks. Gatherings, both public and private, of no more than 49 people are allowed. Physical distancing and precautionary measures have to be observed. That is stage 3. We moved into stage 4 just a little over a week ago on June 15th. And so right now the question is, did we hit a roadblock given all of the cases that we have seen over the last 4 days involving bars in both Boise and Meridian and surrounding areas? We're going to see if we can get back to Joe now, who, let's see if you got your audio issues figured out, if that mouse in your microphone is gone. Joe, what can you tell us about what you're hearing today?
Well, Mark, in terms of when this actual press conference is going to start, I was actually just checking in there. They're doing this virtually, so they're trying to, I guess, kind of figure out exactly what they need to do with the web event itself before they can actually start rolling. But again, as Mark talked about a few minutes ago, a lot of comments being made right now on social media about possible changes, about possible new regulations coming out. Everything's entirely possible right now, but until we actually hear about what the decision is coming up, we hope in a matter of minutes, we're not exactly sure what those are going to look like. Central District Health, they put out a press release earlier this morning, not giving a lot of information, but basically saying at 1 o'clock, we're going to basically address the fact that there's been a growing amount of coronavirus cases confirmed in our district. When you talk about, though, new regulations, new protocols, I've already seen comments, people saying, well, is the whole state going to have to do something? Is the whole state going to have new regulations? That's not how it actually works. We know because of what we saw with the Blaine County situation back in March, different areas can have different rules or different regulations. So, Mark, it's not necessarily going to be a uniform statewide thing if there is a decision by Central District Health. What we do know, though, is that we've seen that growing amount of cases across the county, notably over the last week. Central District Health says they continue to see those case numbers go up and up. Matter of weeks back, we entered phase 4. Mark, it's interesting to see where we'll go from here. I know there's a lot of questions about what could happen during the summertime. You may remember there was that cautious optimism heading into the summer months, June, July, August. What will it look like? Well, now that we're seeing some of those cases start to bump back up, it'll be interesting to see what decisions they do make, if they do.
Well, as you know, Joe, there are a couple of bar owners that elected to go ahead and close the door just last week. Longtime downtown Boise bar owner Dave Crick closed both of his facilities, the Ale House on 8th and the Red Feather Lounge, electing to close due to a coronavirus case in their midst. What else have you heard about the feeling about other bar owners and the fact that there's a chance that they may be forced by Central District Health to close down at least for a period of time? Any word?
Well, I've had some time this morning to kind of have some conversations with people in the community. And if you go back to last week, Mark, you may remember as we reported, some of the bar owners downtown, they came together with health officials to try and work out exactly what a good situation would look like. Mark, I'm hearing from my computer, it sounds like we're going to get started here in a second, so I'll toss back to you.
All right, let's see if in the control room, can we go ahead and Oh, we do not have that yet, Joe, so we're going to ask you to stand by and monitor that situation. In the meantime, Gretchen has come back after just doing the news at noon. And Gretchen, your story last night, you touched on the demographic and the fact that around the country originally, the demographic of those that were testing positive was 45 and above. And now nationally, that demographic has shifted down to the 30-something crowd.
That's right.
And most people are speculating that is because of the abundance of partying and bars that have opened. Is that what you're hearing that's happening around here as well?
Mark, that's right. Here locally, and as you and Joe were talking about earlier this month, the state reported that there was a cluster of about 10 cases that were linked to Boise bars downtown. That cluster has now ballooned to about 100 people. And like you said, the people who are getting sick, the governor said in a press conference last week, they are mostly younger Idahoans, ages 18 to 29, who are showing little symptoms, but they are still carriers. And it's also important to note, he said that those younger people, although they're showing little symptoms, they are accounting for a big population of the people being sick. But part of the uptick in the cases we're seeing, he did say that is due to the fact that we have more testing. That's partly due to the fact that we have more testing. And also he says that the increase in cases hasn't necessarily translated to more hospital beds being used, so that's something good to note as well. And Saturday, that would mark the either past 3 to 4 days in a row that Idaho has had more than 100 cases reported just for one day alone, and that's Idaho's 14-day average. We're at about 61 cases per day. That's what we're averaging for the past 14 days. So I'm really curious to hear what they're going to announce at this press conference with Central District Health today. As we had mentioned earlier, they met with Boise bars last week to discuss how Boise bars could keep their doors open, but also, keep people safe at the same time. We heard that Rocky Johnson, who co-owns Hump and Hannah's, she's requiring patrons to wear masks. I also saw the Cactus in downtown Boise. They posted on their Instagram over the weekend that they too are requiring patrons to wear masks. And Governor Little, he did say last week that he acknowledged that there's been conflicting statements from the WHO about how effective those cloth masks are, and he understands that people are frustrated. Maybe you hear that they're effective, they're not effective, but he says research continues to show that they are a good defense at stopping the spread of the virus. And especially if you think about it in a bar situation where people are drinking, maybe they're shouting loudly and maybe spit is coming from their mouth. That cloth mask, you can see how that would be a good way to, protect spit or whatever flying onto other people, Mark.
I did notice over the weekend some social media posts from some bar owners that feel like they are unjustly being called out in this pandemic and in this most recent spike. One bar owner said, what about the massive rallies that we have seen in the capital city over the last couple of weeks, the social unrest, the racial demonstrations, the Capitol, the courthouse, you could see last week at City Hall, a number of police reform demonstrations happened outside, and not everyone was wearing a mask, not everyone was practicing social distancing, and so unfortunately, we cannot dig down to the exact specifics of those folks and how many of those folks have tested positive. It would be great to pass that information along to you, but we simply don't have it. Anything you can add to that, Gretchen?
Mark, you're absolutely right. I'm curious because that big vigil that was held for George Floyd, that was, I think, like 3 weeks ago now. But I think that would be the time now where if people were infected, if they became infected during that they would start they would be accounted for in the new cases we have. But like you said, I could see how the bar owners could be frustrated because, maybe it's not just from people going to downtown bars. Maybe it's from these big vigils, these big gatherings that we've had. I will say at the vigils, I did see almost everyone wearing a mask, which is good. Like the governor said, research continues to show that it does help. But yeah, there's really no telling, where they could have got it because bars have opened up, but also we've had these big mass gatherings.
All right, if you're just joining us, let's reset the scene for you. Central District Health was scheduled to do a virtual press conference at 1 o'clock about 20 minutes ago. They've had some technical issues involved in that. As soon as they crank up the machine, we will bring it to you. In the meantime, our Joe Paris, basking in the glow of his porch behind his house there in West Boise. And Joe, I'm hearing something going on. Are they about ready to crank this up?
Yeah, so the press event has actually started. I don't know what type of technical issues they're having, Mark, but what I can report to you is that Central District Health has decided Ada County is going to be rolled back to stage 3, and then all bars in Ada County will be forced to close. This is a new health order that goes into effect at 12:01 on Wednesday morning, so 12:01 a.m. Wednesday. Again, Ada County rolled back to stage 3, and all bars are going to be forced to close. Another note, I know people were really optimistic that over the summer, maybe we could start to have some music events, maybe some sporting events outside. Central District Health saying for the time being, those are going to have to wait. Again, Mark, there's a private press link that we were given for this press event earlier in the day. We understand they're having some issues with the other public link. That's why you're not seeing the press conference on your screen right now. It is ongoing. It's a virtual digital press conference Central District Health is holding right now. Again, if you're just joining us, because of the increase of the COVID numbers that we're seeing in Ada County, the Central District Health team has decided that Ada County needs to roll back to stage 3 of the state's Rebound Idaho plan, and all bars are going to be forced to close. Interesting note, I was listening to health officials talking here a few minutes ago, and they say really through the end of April, those daily COVID numbers were doing okay. They were encouraged that there wasn't these big spikes, but in the beginning of June and really now through, I guess, the third week where we are now, they started to see more and more of those cases. They started to see those numbers start to go up. That caused great concern for some of the health officials that were talking about this on the call. Again, we're not exactly sure how long this is going to last in terms of going back to phase 3, those bars having to stay closed. Health officials with Central District Health telling us this afternoon they're going to keep an eye on it, and they'll make an appropriate decision when they think the time is fit. Mark, I know that there was a lot of business owners that are in the Ada County area, all across the county, that this is going to be a surprise to them.
All right, Joe, the one question that you may not be able to answer because, as you just mentioned, this has just started, does everything revert back to stage 3? 14 days self-quarantine for those that enter Idaho from another country or an area outside of Idaho, gatherings of no more than 49 people. Does everything that was scheduled to happen in stage 3 now revert to stage 3?
For Mark, from what I understand, that is the case. The first few minutes of the press conference I was watching, then we realized, it wasn't available to get on TV, so I popped out. I've been listening, though, as they've been talking. They did mention that 14-day, that quarantine, so it sounds like also the crowds of 50 or less, that's again the protocol in Ada County. In terms of every single line item in that stage 3 plan, Mark, I don't know, I'm not watching that press conference right now, but I can tell you those highlight items, especially the crowds of 50 or less, Ada County rolling back to that. So that phase 3 that we talked about a lot, and I can see that we have some information up on the screen right there for you. The highlight here, though, again, is that bars are forced to close. You may remember they were moved up from stage 4 to stage 3, so you may say, well, if we're moving back to stage 3, bars were a part of stage 3, we should be good. Not the way this specific health order is going to work. Again, if you're just joining us, this isn't statewide. This is just Central District Health, Ada County. And Mark, again, the press conference that we were hoping to bring you here live here on KTVB and KTVB.com. It is happening right now. For some reason, though, we're having an issue getting connected with them and getting it here on TV.
All right. Well, we're going to let you get to your job, Joe. And I know you're going to have a full report coming up on the news at 4, 5, and 6. In the meantime, we're going to get you back to Days of Our Lives. But just to recap, Central District Health Director Russell Duke announcing that Ada County is going to revert back to stage 3 of the reopening plan. The highlight in this for many bar owners, the low light, is that bars are instructed to close their doors for the remainder of this stage 3. These stages have been in 2-week increments. So again, I'm assuming that that is the situation here, and we'll find out more after that press conference has completed. But again, bars are closed. Movie theaters are allowed to open, although how many of you have seen a movie theater that has been open? All non-essential travel can resume, but the encouragement is that anyone who comes back to the state after spending time in a hot zone for coronavirus is urged to self-quarantine for 14 days. And again, gatherings of more than 49 people are not permitted. Idaho, at least in Ada County, the largest county in the state, has returned back, taken a step back in the coronavirus reopening plan for the state. We're going to have much more coming up on the News at 4, the 208, and the News at 6. For now, we return you to regularly scheduled programming.
Comes in many forms. Council of Dads.
In Paris or Rome, but I wanna go home. Oh, I miss you, you know. Let me go home. It'll all be alright. I'll be home tonight. I'm coming back home.